The Seattle courthouse smelled like old wood polish and broken promises. I stood at the counsel table, my fingers pressed flat against the cool oak surface, trying to ground myself in something solid while everything around me felt like it was falling apart. Judge Thaddeus Crowe peered down from his bench like a hawk waiting for a slip-up. His black robes hung on his angular frame, and his thin lips curved into what might have been a smile if it had held any warmth. It did not. "Motion denied, Miss Kensington," he said, not even bothering to look at the paperwork Greer Halliday had just submitted. My lawyer, my friend, stood beside me, her jaw tight enough to crack teeth. Across the aisle, my father sat with the smug satisfaction of a man who had already won. Alistair Kensington, corporate tax attorney, master manipulator, and apparently, professional grave robber. His silver hair was perfectly styled, his suit a bespoke masterpiece that made him far more striking than the attorney seated at his elbow. And his eyes, the same hazel as mine, held nothing but cold calculation as they met my gaze. Next to him, Gavin Prescott leaned back in his chair like he was at a country club instead of a courtroom. My father's lawyer had the kind of aggressive confidence that came from never having lost a case he had been willing to cheat to win. They whispered to each other, and I caught the edge of my father's quiet laugh. They looked like predators. I was supposed to be the prey. "Your Honor," Greer tried again, her voice steady despite the frustration I could see tightening the corners of her eyes. The decedent's will was crystal clear. Cecilia Thorne was of sound mind when she executed. "Miss Halliday," Judge Crowe interrupted, his tone dripping with condescension. "I had reviewed the materials. The court had concerns about undue influence and the decedent's mental state during her final months. Cancer treatments could be clouding." My mother's name in his mouth felt like a violation. Cecilia Thorne had been sharper in her last days than most people were on their best. The pancreatic cancer had taken her body, not her mind. But facts did not matter there, apparently. "We were requesting a 60-day continuance to conduct additional discovery," Prescott said, standing with theatrical slowness. My client had reason to believe there might be hidden assets, improper transfers. "Granted," Crowe said before Greer could object. "Of course he did." I closed my eyes for just a moment, fighting the wave of exhaustion that threatened to pull me under. 8 months. It had been 8 months since I had held my mother's hand as she took her last breath in that townhouse in Tacoma. 8 months since I had become an orphan at 30 years old because having a living father who would rather sue you than speak to you was basically the same thing. The inheritance was not even impressive. $83,000 in savings. A 2-bedroom townhouse in Tacoma with a mortgage still attached. An old oak chest that had been in Mom's family for generations, filled with quilts and photographs and the lingering scent of lavender. But then there was the asset I had never expected, a half share in the beachfront villa they had bought together a lifetime ago. At that time, that villa was worth $5 million, and it had brought Mom a steady $5,000 a month as her half share of the net rental proceeds. To me, that half share was a life-changing fortune, a security blanket she had managed to keep. But to my father, it was just the missing piece he needed to complete his collection of coastal trophies. That was it. That was what Alistair Kensington, a man who billed $1,200 an hour, was willing to destroy his only daughter to claim. The irony was not lost on me. I had spent the last 5 years as a public defender, fighting for people who could. I had chosen that path specifically because it was everything he despised: messy, underpaid, focused on actual justice instead of billable hours and corporate tax shelters. "You are wasting your education," he had told me at my law school graduation. That was the last time we had spoken before Mom got sick. "Public defense is for lawyers who cannot make it in real practice." I had chosen the UW specifically to stay close to Mom, after he had blown up our family for Tiffany Street. Claire, a paralegal 15 years, his junior with platinum blonde hair and the moral backbone of a jellyfish. I was 15 when it happened. 15 when I came home from school to find Mom crying at the kitchen table in our Bellevue house, divorce papers spread out in front of her like casualties of war. 15 when I learned that love could be a weapon, and that the man who had taught me to ride a bike could also destroy everything we had built without a second thought. The divorce had been brutal. Alistair had used every legal connection he had to force Mom into a corner. She had walked away with barely enough to survive, while he had kept climbing higher and higher. Corporate law, partnership, that big corner office downtown with the view of Elliott Bay. Mom had taken a job as a part-time librarian. She had smiled through it, told me she was happy, that books were better company than lawyers anyway. But I had seen how thin she had gotten, not from cancer yet, but from the quiet devastation of being erased by someone who had promised to love her forever. Miss Kensington? Judge Crow's voice snapped me back to the present. Do you have anything to add? I looked up at him. This corrupt judge with his black robes and his bias so blatant it should have been grounds for immediate recusal. Then I looked at my father, who was already checking his phone like this was just another tedious appointment on his calendar. No, Your Honor, I said quietly. Greer touched my arm as we gathered our papers. We will figure this out, she whispered. This is not over. But it felt over. It felt like I was 15 again, watching my father take everything while I stood there, still naively believing that rules and fairness and justice actually meant something. As we walked out of the courtroom, I heard my father's voice behind me. Olivia. I stopped, turned. He stood there in the hallway, Prescott already heading toward the elevators. This does not have to be difficult, Alistair said, his tone almost gentle. Almost. Your mother was not well, you knew that. Just agree to mediation. We will split everything fairly, and we can both move on. Fairly. The word felt like a slap. She left everything to me, I said, my voice low and steady. Because you had already taken everything from her once. She wanted to make sure you could not do it again. Something flickered in his eyes. Anger, maybe. Or just annoyance that I was not rolling over the way Mom had been forced to. You are being emotional, he said. That is your problem, Olivia. You let feelings cloud your judgment. It is why you will never be a successful attorney. He walked away before I could respond, which was probably good, because what I had wanted to say would have gotten me cited for contempt. Greer and I rode the elevator down in silence. When we reached the lobby, she finally spoke. That was a disaster. I know. Crow was completely in your father's pocket. Every motion we filed, he was going to deny. Every request they made, he was going to grant. She stopped, turned to face me. Olivia, I needed you to be realistic here. We might lose this. Your father had resources, connections. I know, I said again, because what else was there to say? I drove home to Tacoma in a daze, the rain streaking across my windshield like tears I was too angry to cry. I-5 was a nightmare, a stagnant snarl of red brick. The townhouse felt empty when I let myself in, filled with boxes I still had not unpacked, furniture that still smelled like my mother's perfume. I dropped my briefcase by the door and stood in the living room, surrounded by the modest life my mother had built from the ruins my father had left her. This was not just a lawsuit, this was erasure. This was my father's final act of control, his last chance to prove that even in death, Cecilia Thorne belonged to him, and I was still playing by the rules. Still believing that if I just filed the right motions, presented the right evidence, spoke the right words, then justice would prevail. Naive, foolish, weak. Everything my father had always said I was. I looked around the townhouse, my mother's legacy, the only thing standing between her memory and complete annihilation, and felt something crack inside my chest. Maybe it was time to stop playing fair. Maybe it was time to learn how to fight the way my father did. I just did not know how yet. If you were in Olivia's shoes grieving, getting crushed by the system, would you keep playing by the rules even though you're losing? Or is it time to get your hands dirty and burn your father's world down? Integrity or revenge? What's your move? The next morning, I called in sick to work. The King County Public Defender's Office was accustomed to burned-out attorneys taking mental health days, so nobody questioned it. I spent the morning sorting through boxes in the spare bedroom, but it was a dead end. I found nothing that could actually help our case, just a mountain of paper that proved nothing to a biased court. Exhausted, my gaze drifted until it settled on the oak chest in the corner. It sat against the wall like it had been part of the room's architecture, its dark wood worn smooth by generations of hands. Mom had kept it in her bedroom for as long as I could remember. As a child, I had been fascinated by it, the carved flowers on the lid, the heavy brass hinges, the way it smelled like cedar and thyme when you opened it. That had been in my family for 4 generations. Mom had told me once, "My great-grandmother brought it west when she came to Washington. Someday it will be yours." Someday had come too soon. I knelt in front of it, running my fingers over the carved wood. It was the only thing from the inheritance my father had not specifically challenged in his lawsuit. Too sentimental, maybe, no monetary value, just an old box full of memories. I lifted the lid, the familiar smell of lavender and cedar wafted out. Inside, she kept the fragments of our lives. Mom's wedding quilt, baby blankets she had made for me, old family portraits from better days, the tarnished little medals I had won in grade school. Even the crude plastic bracelets I had clumsily made for her as a child. She had kept every single thing in this chest. To my father, it was junk. To her, it was a sanctuary. But as I lifted out the bottom quilt, my hand brushed against something that did not feel right. The wood at the base of the chest felt different, hollow. My heart started beating faster. I ran my fingers along the seam, pressing, searching. There, a small indentation, barely visible. I pressed it, and a section of the bottom lifted away, a hidden compartment. My hands were shaking as I reached inside. The space was shallow but long, built into the false bottom of the chest. I pulled out a stack of yellowed documents, bound together with a length of frayed, weathered twine. Beneath them, a diary. The leather cover was cracked and dusty, the pages brittle with age. I sat back on my heels, my mind reeling. Mom had kept secrets. Mom, who had been the most transparent person I had ever known, who had taught me that honesty was the foundation of integrity, had hidden something important enough to build a secret compartment for it. I opened the diary first. The handwriting was my mother's, but younger, more energetic than the shaky script of her final months. It began on a rainy mid-March day in 1994. Assignment to Operation Iron Harbor confirmed. They say it signals intelligence, that we're helping protect the country. The JAG advisors seem competent. Kensington is charming. Crow is brilliant. I'm honored to be part of this team. I stopped breathing. Operation Iron Harbor, JAG advisors, Kensington and Crow. My father and the judge currently destroying me in court. I flipped through the pages, my hands trembling so badly I could barely hold the diary. Mom's entries grew darker as the seasons changed. By early June of that same year, the tone had shifted entirely. Something's wrong. The surveillance scope keeps expanding. We're not just monitoring external threats anymore. Crow is pushing to include domestic targets, activists, journalists, anyone who might compromise operational security. Kensington supports him. He says we need to be pragmatic. In late August, the reality set in. They're using the intelligence for personal gain. I've seen the report's information being shared with corporate contacts, politicians, people who have nothing to do with national security. Crow and Kensington have turned this into their own private I tried to raise concerns, but Major Fisk shut me down. Operational necessity, he said. I don't believe him anymore. Mid-October brought the breaking point. Marcus Webb is dead. They're calling it an accident, a car crash, single vehicle, late at night. But Marcus was the civil rights activist who was about to expose the contractor fraud at the base. He'd been under surveillance, our surveillance. 3 days before he died, I saw Crow reviewing his file, taking notes. Now Marcus is gone and the investigation is closed. Tragic accident. I want to vomit. I had to stop reading. My vision was blurring, my breath coming in short gasps. My mother. My gentle, kind mother who had worked in a library and made quilts and cried at Hallmark commercials. She had been a United States Air Force signals specialist. She had worked on classified operations. She had witnessed corruption, murder, and she had kept it secret for over 25 years. I turned to the documents beneath the diary, photocopies of reports, heavily redacted but still legible. Names, dates, operational codes, and photographs. The photographs. 2 young men in military dress uniforms, standing with a group of officers. One was clearly my father, the same sharp jawline, the same cold eyes, though his hair was dark brown instead of silver. The other was Thaddeus Crow, younger and leaner but unmistakable. They were laughing in the photo. arms around each other's shoulders like brothers. I spread the documents out on the floor, trying to piece together the timeline. My parents had met during Operation Iron Harbor. Mom was the signals specialist. Dad was a contract lawyer and reserve JAG officer. They had fallen in love while committing acts that would end both their careers if exposed. When Mom had started asking questions and threatened to report what she knew, my father did not just disagree, he used their future as a shield. He promised her that if she only gave him time, he would set everything in order. But the ultimatum was clear. If she exposed even a fragment of the truth, that future would be extinguished right then and there. The final entry, written in November of 1994, was the most devastating. I'm leaving the service. I can't be part of this anymore. Alistair says I'm being dramatic, that I need to understand how the real world works. He says if I speak up, I'll destroy both our careers. And for what? Marcus Webb is already dead. Nothing will bring him back. The verification code for everything we've done is Amber Horizon. Alistair and Crow know it, so does Fisk. If anything happens to me, if anyone ever needs proof that's the key to unlock it all, I'm pregnant. I found out yesterday. I'm going to marry Alistair and raise our child far away from all of this. Maybe I'm a coward. Maybe I'm just trying to protect the life growing inside me, but I can't fight them. They're too powerful, and I'm too afraid. I was that child, the reason my mother had stayed silent, the reason she had married a man who had helped cover up a murder. Their departure from the service wasn't a retreat, it was a surgical reconstruction of the past. While Alistair utilized his JAG authority to bury the Marcus Webb case under mountains of red tape and top-secret classifications, my mother was the ghost in the machine, quietly scrubbing the digital fingerprints from the signals logs. They walked off that base with honorable discharges in hand, the golden ticket Alistair needed to waltz into Seattle's top-tier firms without ever fearing a background check. They manufactured themselves into model citizens by incinerating the truth, leaving behind a dead man and a ghost operation called Iron Harbor that the world would never have known existed, if not for that oak chest. I sat on the floor of the spare bedroom, surrounded by the evidence of my parents' past crimes, and felt the last pieces of my naive worldview shatter. Judge Thaddeus Crow was not assigned to my case by accident. My father had arranged it, his old colleague, his partner in crime, his insurance policy. They had gotten away with corruption and murder for 3 decades, and now they were working together again to steal my mother's legacy. The betrayal went so much deeper than I had imagined. Mom had kept these secrets to protect me. She had stayed silent, enduring a marriage where the love flowed in only one direction, letting my father walk all over her because speaking up would have destroyed me too. She had poured her heart into a void, sacrificing her integrity to protect the child born from that hollow devotion, the daughter of criminals, the child born from a union forged in cover-ups and lies. But she had left me the evidence, hidden it in the oak chest she knew would come to me, left me the verification code, the key to everything, Amber Horizon. The confusion and grief that had been weighing me down since Mom's death crystallized into something else. Something cold and sharp and focused. Fury. I pulled out my phone and called Greer. She answered on the second ring. "Olivia, are you okay?" "I found something," I said, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. "Leverage. I cannot explain everything yet, but I need you to trust me." "What kind of leverage?" "The kind that ends this case, but I need to verify some details first." There was a pause. "Olivia, if you have evidence of judicial misconduct..." "I do, but it is bigger than that. Just trust me, please." Another pause. Then, "Okay, I trust you, but be careful. If your father finds out you have something on him..." "He will not until I am ready." I hung up and stared at the documents spread across the floor. This was not just about the inheritance anymore. This was about justice for my mother, justice for Marcus Webb. Justice for everyone my father and Crow had crushed under their expensive shoes on their climb to power. I could not tell Greer everything yet. The fewer people who knew, the safer they would be. This had to be strategic, calculated. I had to become the kind of lawyer my father had always wanted me to be: ruthless, pragmatic, willing to win at any cost. The difference was, I would still be fighting for the right side. I gathered the documents carefully, took photos of everything with my phone, and packed every scrap of paper my mother had left behind into my private luggage, a space that was strictly off-limits to anyone else. Then I sat at my laptop and started making a list. Names to verify, people who might remember Operation Iron Harbor, anyone who could confirm what my mother had documented. This was my first small strategic move, keeping the secret, protecting my sources, and planning my revenge with the precision of a surgeon. My father had taught me to fight fair. My mother had taught me to fight for what was right. Now I was going to teach both of them what happened when you underestimated Olivia Kensington. The prey was about to become the predator. And they would never see it coming. Let's talk about Cecilia Thorne. Is she a tragic victim who sacrificed her soul to protect her daughter? Or was she just a coward? Does she deserve our sympathy? The envelope arrived on a Wednesday morning, slipped through my mail slot like a viper through tall grass. I had been awake since 4, nursing cold coffee at my kitchen table in the Tacoma townhouse, watching dawn break gray and uninviting over the sound. Sleep had become a stranger these past weeks. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Judge Crow's smug face, heard my father's lawyer dismantling my mother's final wishes with ruthless precision. Inside, Gavin Prescott's latest salvo was dressed in the polite language of legal procedure, but the message was clear as broken glass. They wanted everything sealed for comprehensive appraisal, not just Mom's savings but her personal effects, every photograph, every letter, every piece of her they could inventory and price like merchandise at an estate sale. My hands trembled as I read the list. They were trying to strip away every physical memory I had of her. This was not about money anymore, if it ever really was. This was about erasing Cecilia Thorne from existence, reducing 30 years of her life to a line item in a probate filing. I set the letter down carefully, afraid I might tear it to shreds otherwise. The diary sat beside me, wrapped in an old silk scarf. I had barely slept since finding it, reading and rereading those precise coded entries. Operation Iron Harbor, the careful documentation of something that made powerful men nervous even decades later. Mom's handwriting filled those pages, steady, methodical, damning. But I could not just walk into court waving a diary. I needed corroboration. I needed people who could confirm what Mom had witnessed, who could verify that this was not the paranoid fantasy of a dying woman, as Prescott would inevitably claim. I needed proof that would stand up, even if I never used it in court. Mom's diary mentioned colleagues by first names only, sometimes just initials. I started with her old address book, cross-referenced names against military records I could access through public databases, called every B. Vance in the Pacific Northwest, until my voice went hoarse. Finally, I found her. Beatrice Vance lived in a modest ranch house in Olympia, surrounded by vibrant peonies she probably fussed over every spring. She answered the door with the cautious wariness of someone who had learned not to trust unexpected visitors. "Miss Vance, my name is Olivia Kensington. I am Cecilia Thorne's daughter." Her face transformed. The wariness melted into something softer, sadder. "Oh, honey, I heard about Cecilia. I am so sorry." Her voice caught. She was one of the good ones. Over tea in her sun-drenched kitchen, Beatrice confirmed what the diary had only hinted at. Yes, she had worked signals with Mom in the late 90s. Yes, there had been an operation classified, sensitive, the kind that made careers for some people and destroyed others. And yes, there were men who had bent the rules, who had treated military resources like personal playgrounds. "Your mother kept records," Beatrice said quietly, stirring honey into her cup. Not because she wanted to hurt anyone, because she believed in accountability, in doing things the right way. She looked up at me, her eyes fierce. Alistair Kensington and Thaddeus Crow? They thought they were untouchable. Maybe they still do. "Can you testify to that?" She hesitated. "If I absolutely had to, yes. But Olivia, these men have long memories and longer reach. You need to be very, very careful." I left with her phone number programmed into my cell and a lead on the second name, Colonel Harrison Fiske. Tracking down a retired colonel turned out to be easier than finding a civilian. Fiske had an office at a veterans advocacy nonprofit in Seattle, where he spent his days helping former service members navigate VA bureaucracy. When I called, He was exactly what I had pictured. Ramrod straight posture, steel gray crew cut, handshake that could crack walnuts. We sat in his Spartan office, and I laid out what I knew carefully, watching his reaction. When I mentioned Operation Iron Harbor, his jaw tightened. When I said Amber Horizon, he went very still. Where did you hear that phrase? His voice was quiet, controlled, but I caught the edge underneath. My mother's diary. She kept personal notes. Nothing classified, just observations, records of irregularities. Fisk leaned back in his chair, studying me with the intensity of someone used to evaluating threats and assets. Amber Horizon is a verification code. It was tied to the encrypted communication logs for Iron Harbor. Your mother would only know that phrase if she had access to those systems. He paused. The official logs are still sealed in government archives. Classified. Will be for another 20 years, minimum. My heart hammered against my ribs, but Mom's personal notes were not classified. She was smart enough to keep her documentation separate. Observations, timeline discrepancies, budget irregularities, things she noticed that pointed to larger problems without revealing operational details. He met my eyes. Your mother was protecting people, Olivia, including herself, including you, and those notes? That is the weapon your mother left for you. You know the players. You know what they did. Now, use that secret wisely. I left his office with something more valuable than testimony. I left with a weapon. The truth was both a loaded gun and a live grenade. Mom had kept this secret for decades, carrying it quietly to protect our family from the fallout. And now Dad was trampling on that sacrifice, trying to erase her from history because it was convenient for him. The anger that had been simmering since the first hearing crystallized into something colder, sharper, strategic. I called Greer Halliday from my car, still parked outside Fiskey's building. I found it, I said when she answered. I found the leverage. We met at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill, tucked into a back corner booth where the espresso machine's hiss provided cover. I walked her through everything, the diary, the witnesses, the code phrase that could crack this case wide open. Greer listened without interrupting, her lawyer brain processing angles and risks. When I finished, she set down her matte stoneware mug and fixed me with a serious look. Olivia, this is nuclear. You understand that, right? I understand. If you reveal classified information even accidentally, even in a courtroom you could face federal charges. They do not care that it is your mother's legacy or that you are fighting corruption. The government protects its secrets. I know. That is why I am not planning to reveal anything classified. I leaned forward. I just need them to know that I could, that I have access to information that would bury them both. Greer's eyes gleamed with understanding. A threat. Implicit but unmistakable. Exactly. We spent the next 2 hours mapping out the strategy. On the surface, we would continue fighting the probate case on solid legal ground, testamentary capacity, proper execution, Mom's clear mental state when she drafted the will. We would present evidence, call witnesses, do everything by the book, but if Judge Crow remained blatantly biased, if he prepared to hand Dad everything on a corrupt silver platter, then I would use Amber Horizon, just the phrase, just enough to remind Alistair and Crow that Mom had not taken her secrets to the grave. That some truths, once documented, never really disappear. It is risky, Greer warned. If they call your bluff. It is not a bluff. I have corroboration from 2 witnesses. I have Mom's documentation. I have the verification code, and I have absolutely nothing left to lose. That night, back in my townhouse, I stood in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized myself. The woman staring back was not the naive public defender who had walked into Crow's courtroom 3 weeks ago, believing that justice meant following the rules and trusting the system. This woman had learned that sometimes the system was rigged, that sometimes the only way to fight corruption was to make the corrupt afraid. Mom's strength flowed through my veins like a transfusion. She had been brave enough to document the truth when it would have been easier to look away, brave enough to protect that documentation for decades, knowing it might one day matter. Now, it was my turn to be brave. I was not seeking Dad's approval anymore. I did not need Judge Crow to see me as anything other than a threat to his comfortable corruption. I held a secret that could end careers, destroy reputations, peel back the veneer of respectability these men had spent decades polishing, and I was absolutely willing to use it. The knock came at 8 in the morning, sharp, dry, and punctual enough to be an insult. I opened the door to two men from a Bellevue-based appraisal firm, the kind of professionals hired to look through the fog of grief and see only spreadsheets. They wore identification badges and carried iPads, digital cameras, and a roll of neon yellow barcode stickers. They didn't offer condolences. They only asked, "Are you Olivia Kensington? We're here under court order for a comprehensive inventory of the estate." I stood leaning against the kitchen door frame, arms crossed, feeling the weight of the Operation Iron Harbor files tucked safely inside my personal leather briefcase in the next room. My mother's diary had been removed from the oak chest the night before. Now, whatever they were about to take was merely the hollow shell of a memory. The process was sickeningly efficient. They moved through the Tacoma townhouse like programmed ghosts. Every item my mother had once cherished received a cold touch and a label. Lot number 204. 3 boxes of miscellaneous paperback books. Estimated value, $40. Lot number 205. Collection of silk scarves. Estimated value, $150. Lot number 209. 1 oak chest, hand-carved with floral motifs, rusted brass hinges. When they lifted the chest, I held my breath for a heartbeat. It was empty, but the groan of the wood as it was hauled from its spot still made my chest tighten. They slapped a strip of red tape across the lid. Property of estate, pending appraisal. They didn't smell the lavender. They didn't see the decades she spent sitting beside it, stitching together the broken pieces of our lives. They only saw a piece of furniture that needed to be moved to a climate-controlled warehouse. "We're transporting these items to the central facility for detailed valuation per Mr. Prescott's request," the lead appraiser said, his eyes never leaving his screen. "You are permitted to remain on the premises, but any items currently under seal are not to be disturbed or removed until further notice from the court." I watched the white, unmarked van pull away from the curb, carrying the last physical fragments of my mother's existence. The house felt cavernous now, marked only by the rectangular dust outlines where her legacy used to be. Prescott thought he had disarmed me. He thought that by sealing these memories, he had successfully locked away the past. He didn't know that the only thing capable of incinerating his career, and my father's with it, was sitting right at my feet, hidden inside the briefcase of a public defender who no longer believed in playing fair. Does Olivia play the Amber Horizon card right now just to kick these guys out, or does she suck it up and wait to deliver the killing blow? Are you team instant payback or team the long game? The courthouse felt different on the morning of the continued hearing. Maybe it was just my perception, but even the marble columns seemed to lean in with anticipation, waiting to see how this tragedy would end. I dressed carefully, charcoal suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back in a severe bun, the costume of a woman who had already lost, and knew it. Greer met me on the steps, her expression deliberately neutral. "Ready?" she asked quietly. I was born ready for this. We entered courtroom 6 at exactly 9 o'clock. Dad was already seated at the plaintiff's table with Gavin Prescott, who looked like a shark who had scented blood in the water. They both watched us cross the room with barely concealed satisfaction. Judge Thaddeus Crowe swept in at 9:15, his black robe billowing dramatically. He settled behind the bench like a king assuming his throne, completely confident in his authority. "Let us proceed," he announced. "Mr. Prescott, you may continue." What followed was a masterclass in character assassination. Prescott attacked Mom's mental capacity with the fervor of a man who believed he had already won. He introduced medical records that described her final months, the pain medication, the exhaustion, the moments of confusion that any dying person might experience. He twisted every instance of human frailty into evidence of incompetence. "Ladies and gentlemen," Prescott intoned, though there was no jury, just Crowe's prejudiced ears, "we must ask ourselves, was Cecilia Thorne truly of sound mind when she drafted this will? Or was she, tragically, compromised by her illness, manipulated by a daughter seeking to profit from her mother's vulnerable state?" The implication made my blood boil, that I had somehow coerced Mom, preyed on her weakness. It was obscene, insulting to everything Mom had been. I sat perfectly still, hands clenched together under the table where no one could see them shake. I let my shoulders curve slightly inward, let my eyes drop to the papers in front of me. Every inch of body language screamed defeat. Greer rose to object, to present our counter-evidence testimony from Mom's doctors confirming her mental clarity, statements from the attorney who had drafted the will, records showing she had made similar financial decisions with perfect competence right up until her final week. Judge Crow interrupted her every third sentence. "Counselor, we have heard enough medical opinions. Move on." "Your Honor, this testimony is directly relevant." "I will decide what is relevant, Miss Halliday. Continue or sit down." I watched it unfold like a play I had seen before, knowing how the script would end. Crow dismissed every piece of evidence we presented. He sustained Prescott's objections before Greer even finished speaking. He checked his watch repeatedly, signaling his boredom with anything that might support Mom's wishes. Dad caught my eye across the aisle. His expression was pure triumph, the look of a man who had known all along that he could not lose. His eyes seemed to say, "See, sweetheart, I told you, you never could beat me, you never will." I held his gaze for 3 seconds, then looked away. Let him see submission, let him taste victory. This was the trap, the bait. I needed them both, Dad and Crow, to believe they had won absolutely. Needed them so confident in their corruption that they would drop their guard completely. Only then would the hammer fall with maximum impact. Under the table, my index finger tapped against my thigh in a steady rhythm. 4 beats, pause. 4 beats, pause. The calming technique I had learned in law school for managing courtroom stress. But now it meant something different. I was not panicking. I was counting down. Greer glanced at me once, caught the tiny movement, and understood. She shifted tactics, softening her arguments, letting Prescott score points, playing the game. By 11:30, he began gathering his papers with the deliberate movements of a man preparing to deliver a verdict. The courtroom went silent except for the whisper of documents and the creak of his leather chair. "Based on the evidence presented," Crow announced, his voice resonating with false authority, "this court finds that substantial doubt exists regarding Cecilia Thorne's testamentary capacity at the time of will execution. Furthermore, the financial arrangements appear unduly influenced by. He was giving Dad everything, the savings, the townhouse, the legacy. He was about to erase Mom from legal existence, reduce her final wishes to a footnote in a corrupt judge's ledger. The rage that had been building for 8 months since Mom's death, since Dad's lawsuit, since every dismissive word and biased ruling crystallized into perfect, cold clarity. I stood up. The scrape of my chair against the floor cut through Crow's pronouncement like a knife through silk. Every head in the courtroom turned toward me. "Miss Kensington," Crow said, irritation bleeding through his judicial mask, "you will sit down, and—" "Your Honor," my voice came out steady, clear, with an edge of steel I did not know I possessed. I did not wait for his permission to continue. I looked straight at the bench, ignoring my father's confused glare from the plaintiff's table. "Amber horizon," I said, my voice calm and clear, cutting through the sudden silence. The effect was instantaneous, and more devastating than I had even imagined. All the color drained from Thaddeus Crow's face. In my years of practicing law, I had never seen anyone go that pale that fast, like watching ink dissolve in water. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Across the courtroom, my father made a strangled noise. I turned just in time to see his hand, always so steady when signing documents that destroyed lives, begin to tremble violently. His Mont Blanc pen clattered to the floor, the sound echoing in the sudden, suffocating silence. "What?" Prescott started, confusion written across his face. "Court is recessed." Crow's voice cracked on the last word. He gripped the edge of his bench, knuckles white. "Immediately. Everyone out. Now." The gallery erupted in confused whispers. Prescott looked between Crow and my father, clearly trying to understand what had just detonated in his carefully constructed case. "Your Honor, I do not understand," Prescott began. His hand shook as he pointed toward the door. "Miss Kensington, Mr. Kensington, my chambers, immediately." Greer caught my arm as I passed her. I gave her a firm nod and met her eyes with a look that told her everything she needed to know. "I have got this." I nodded once. She squeezed my hand and stepped back, moving toward the exit with the rest of the confused spectators. I had told her to wait outside, that this part I had to do alone. Some confrontations require witnesses, others require privacy. I moved past Prescott, who had been duly instructed to wait outside his eyes, tracking me with a look of confusion laced with a sudden, sharp fear. The walk to Crow's chambers felt like miles. Portraits of former judges peered down from the dark walnut-paneled walls. My father hadn't looked at me yet. His jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscle jumping beneath his skin. Behind us, Crow's footsteps were heavy, uneven. The moment the door closed behind us, my father whirled on me. "Where did you—" He stopped himself, years of courtroom discipline wrestling with panic. "Olivia, you do not understand what you are doing." "Do I not?" I crossed my arms, leaning against Crow's mahogany desk. The irony was not lost on me standing in a corrupt judge's chambers, about to use the truth as a weapon. Mom would have appreciated that. "I understand perfectly, Dad. Or should I call you Major Kensington? That was what they called you back then, was it not?" Crow had collapsed into his leather chair, head in his hands. "How?" he croaked. "Mom kept excellent records, diary entries, photographs, dates, times, coordinates. Everything about Operation Iron Harbor, everything about what happened in that warehouse in late 1994. My father's face had gone from pale to gray. Cecilia would not what? Would not protect herself? Would not document the truth? My voice stayed level, but I felt the rage burning beneath it, years of watching him manipulate, watching him lie, watching him destroy Mom's reputation even in death. She was a signals specialist, Dad. She knew how to gather intelligence. She just never used it because she believed in doing the right thing. I pushed off the desk, taking a step closer. Both men looked diminished somehow, smaller than they had moments ago. But I am not Mom. I have spent the last 8 months watching you try to steal her legacy, watching you paint her as incompetent, watching you use your old buddy here to rig the system in your favor. I glanced at Crow, who still would not meet my eyes. I learned you taught me that sometimes the only way to win is to play the game better than your opponent. Olivia, please. My father's voice held a note I had never heard before, genuine fear. If this comes out, you both go down, hard. I let that sink in for a moment. Judge Crow faces federal investigation for his role in covering up that operation. You lose your law license, your reputation, probably your freedom, and your new wife Tiffany? Well, I am guessing her prenup does not cover husband imprisoned for federal crimes. Crow finally looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. What do you want? I had rehearsed this moment 100 times in my head. I had practiced staying calm, keeping my voice level. No screaming, no tears. Just cold, calculated justice. First, Alistair withdraws the lawsuit against Mom's estate. Immediately. Today. My father opened his mouth to protest, but I kept going. Second, you both sign affidavits accepting the will as valid and acknowledging that Cecilia Thorne was of completely sound mind when she executed it. Olivia, I am not finished. I held up 3 fingers. Third, Judge Crow, you voluntarily recuse yourself from this case. You cite a previously undisclosed personal relationship with one of the parties. The case gets transferred to another judge, someone who is not on my father's payroll. Crow's face flushed red, but he said nothing. And fourth, I paused, savoring this moment. You issue a public apology, both of you, for questioning Mom's mental capacity, for dragging her name through the mud, for using the courts as your personal playground. The silence stretched out. My father was the first to speak. And if we do this, if we agree to everything, then what happened at Iron Harbor stays buried. I met his eyes directly. The records stay hidden. Your secret stays safe. You get to keep pretending you are an upstanding citizen, instead of someone who helped cover up an accident that was not really an accident at all. I watched him absorb that, the confirmation that I knew, that I understood exactly what they had done, what they had hidden, whose bodies were buried in which closets. You would really do this? Crow asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Use classified information, extort federal officials. I am not extorting anyone, Your Honor. The title tasted like ash in my mouth. I am offering you a choice. Do the right thing now, or have the truth come out in federal court? Your call. My father looked at Crow. Something passed between them, some wordless acknowledgement of defeat. After 30 years of wielding power, of manipulating systems, of crushing anyone who stood in their way, they had been checkmated by a 30-year-old public defender with her mother's diary. Fine, my father said finally. The word came out strangled. We will do it, all of it. Today? I pressed. The notice of voluntary dismissal gets filed before this courthouse closes. The recusal gets submitted tomorrow morning. The affidavits get notarized by end of business Friday. Crow nodded slowly, mechanically. And the apology? Written statement to the Seattle Times. You will call it a misunderstanding and praise Mom's legacy. Make it convincing. I turned toward the door, then paused. There was one more thing I needed to say, not for them, but for myself, for Mom. You know what the saddest part is? I looked back at my father. Mom loved you, even when you betrayed her for Tiffany, even through that brutal divorce when you stripped her of nearly everything you two had built together. She just endured it. She took it all in silence, never once trying to strike back. She chose to be broken so I would not have to be. She kept those records as insurance, but she never planned to use them. That was who she was. Decent, honorable, everything you pretended to be. His jaw worked, but no words came out. I am not going to let you destroy what she built just because you cannot stand the idea of her choosing someone else, even if that someone was her own daughter. This inheritance? This townhouse? It was never about the money for you. It was about control, about winning, about erasing her choices even in death. I pulled open the door. You have 4 hours to file that dismissal. If I do not see it in the system by 5 p.m., every document I have goes to the federal prosecutors, the state bar, and the media. Are we clear? 2 nods. 2 broken men who had finally met someone willing to fight as dirty as they had always played. I walked out of that courthouse with my head high, heels clicking against marble. Greer was waiting by the main doors. Well? She asked. It is over, I said, and for the first time in 8 months, I felt like I could breathe. The dominoes fell faster than I had anticipated. By the time the courthouse closed that afternoon, the notice of voluntary dismissal had appeared in the system. Gavin Prescott's aggressive strategy evaporated instantly. The next morning, Judge Crow's recusal was official, citing previously undisclosed personal relationships. The case was transferred to Judge Constance Winthrop, a woman known for her zero-tolerance policy regarding legal nonsense. The hearing took less than 20 minutes. Miss Halliday, Judge Winthrop said, closing the file with a decisive snap. This will was properly executed and coherent. I see no grounds to question its validity. Probate is granted immediately. Just like that, it was done. The $83,000 in savings, the townhouse in Tacoma, the oak chest, and finally the half share of the $5 million beachfront villa. All of it was officially mine. My father had not just lost the case. He had been forced to hand back the very pieces of my mother's life he had thought he had successfully stolen. But justice did not stop at the courtroom doors. Later that week, a local legal reporter connected the dots between Olivia Kensington and Thaddeus Crow, uncovering their shared history in the Judge Advocate General's Corps. The story ran on the front page of the Seattle Times. Local judges' ties to prominent attorney raise ethics questions. The fallout was swift. The Washington State Bar Association opened an investigation. 3 major corporate clients publicly dropped my father's firm, causing the reputation he had built over a lifetime to collapse like a sandcastle at high tide. And Tiffany? She filed for divorce on Friday afternoon, protected by a prenuptial agreement that allowed her to cut her losses before the ship sank completely. I sat in my mother's townhouse, staring at the message from Greer. I felt a complete release. I was no longer living under my father's shadow or the paralyzing pain of losing my mother. I had overcome my weakness. I finally understood that justice sometimes requires the courage to use the truth as a sharp weapon. The inheritance sat in my bank account, $83,000. It was more money than I needed for a fresh start. I pulled up my laptop and initiated the plan I had been forming. I allocated the full $83,000 to establish the Cecilia Thorne Integrity Fund, dedicated to supporting victims of judicial bias and women fighting impossible probate battles. To sustain it, the fund would be bolstered by a monthly contribution of $5,000 sourced from 50% of the coastal villa's net profits after all operating expenses were settled. It was the perfect way to honor her. Mom had spent her life helping others quietly. Now, her legacy would do so loudly. I sat in the living room beside the oak chest. I had wiped it clean, removing the dust and the secrets it had held for so long. The hidden compartment was empty then, the leverage stored safely away, but the wood still felt warm and solid under my hand. I felt Mom smiling. I picked up the pen and opened a fresh journal, writing down the lesson that had cost me my innocence, but given me my freedom. Justice is not just about exposing everything. Sometimes it lies in when and how you use the truth. I looked out at the city lights, wondering about others who might find themselves in my position. I wondered if they would have made the same choice, keeping the secret as leverage to protect what mattered, or if they would have burned it all down with the truth.
I wake up at 9 on Thanksgiving morning to something wrong. Silence. The Kessler family house, our 5-bedroom monument to middle-class aspiration, is never silent on Thanksgiving. Mom should be downstairs already, the kitchen filled with the rich aroma of roasting turkey. Dad should be planted in front of the TV, volume cranked too high on the Macy's parade. Corbin and Sloane should be bickering over who gets the good bathroom first, but there's nothing, just the faint hum of the heating system clicking on. I sit up, run a hand through my tangled hair, and listen harder. No cabinets opening and closing, no water running, no footsteps on the stairs. Hello? My voice sounds strange in the stillness. When no one answers, a flicker of unease ripples through me. I grab my phone from the nightstand. No messages, no missed calls, nothing to explain the wrongness of this morning. I swing my legs over the side of the bed, suddenly wide awake. The hardwood floor feels cold against my bare feet as I pad to the hallway. Mom? Dad? I call out, louder this time. The doors to my siblings' rooms stand open, beds empty and hastily made. Not slept in at all, by the look of them. Downstairs, the kitchen is spotless. No turkey thawing on the counter. No ingredients lined up for stuffing or cranberry sauce. Just my coffee mug from last night sitting alone in the otherwise empty sink. I walk to the front window and pull back the curtain. The driveway is empty. All the cars are gone, my parents' sedan, Corbin's beat-up Jeep, even the 7-seater SUV I filled with gas yesterday for our planned drive to Uncle Dean's house. A ridiculous thought flashes through my mind. Maybe they ran out for cranberries or another last-minute ingredient. But the house doesn't feel like they just stepped out. It feels cold, abandoned. I grab my phone again, pull up my mother's contact. It's gone. My father's number gone too. I scroll frantically through my contacts. Corbin, Sloane, even Rhett, all deleted. What the hell? I mutter, my heartbeat quickening. Then I remember. Last night. Rhett borrowing my phone. Hey sis, can I check the score real quick? My phone's dead. 19 years old and still can't remember to charge his phone. I'd handed it over without a second thought. Clever, but not clever enough. Rhett isn't the sharpest tool in the shed. He deleted the entries but didn't block the numbers. I still have our call history, and I know most of their numbers by heart anyway, but Uncle Dean's I know for sure. I tap it in and hit call, pacing the kitchen as it rings. Hello? His voice sounds relaxed, cheerful. Uncle Dean, it's Krista. Where is everyone? A pause. Krista? Oh, you're still home? Something in his voice makes my stomach drop. And then I hear it in the background, the rhythmic sound of waves crashing against a shore. Somewhere distant, the faint, unmistakable plucking of a ukulele. Where are you? I ask, though I already know the answer isn't his New England colonial, with the massive dining room table we were supposed to gather around today. Ah. His voice drops. Well, your parents wanted a big surprise for their 30th anniversary. They all flew to Maui last night. I grip the counter, my knuckles turning white. All of them? They figured you were busy with work, he continues, sounding uncomfortable now. And, well, they didn't want you to worry about the expense. The expense. The expense for the vacation they're taking with money I've been pouring into this house for years. Before I can respond, I hear a voice in the background. Sloane. God, are you talking to her? I thought the plan was to just let her stay home. Uncle Dean makes a shushing sound, but it's too late. I've heard enough. Krista, he starts. I end the call. The kitchen feels colder now as I stand motionless, my phone clutched in my hand. This wasn't some last-minute prank. This was planned, orchestrated. They deleted my contacts. They snuck out in the night. They left me behind deliberately. My gaze drifts to the calendar on the fridge, where I'd circled today's date and written, Thanksgiving at Uncle Dean's, in my neat handwriting. Next to it, the list of chores I'd completed to get ready. Clean guest bathroom, gas up SUV, pick up wine. This wasn't a prank. This was deliberate, malicious financial exclusion. They wanted a luxury vacation using the money I paid for the mortgage, and they didn't want me there. I wait for tears, for the crushing weight of betrayal to bring me to my knees. But it doesn't come. Instead, something strange happens. A crystalline clarity washes over me. Every moment of the last 6 years, every check I've written, every bill I've paid, every sacrifice I've made while my siblings took snaps into sudden, perfect focus. I don't cry. I don't scream. I don't throw things. I just stand in the silent kitchen of a house that isn't really mine, feeling something final click into place inside me. I am done. The phone clicks dead in my hand. Uncle Dean's voice and Sloane's careless complaint fade into silence, but their echoes remain, ricocheting through my mind like stray bullets. I sink into a chair at the empty kitchen table, my coffee mug from last night still sitting in the sink, the only evidence anyone lives here at all. The house feels cavernous now, each empty room mocking me with its silence. 6 years. The number materializes in my mind with perfect clarity. 6 years of being the invisible pillar. 6 years of watching my paycheck disappear into this 5-bedroom monument to middle-class pretension, all while being told I was the responsible one. I was 20 when I moved back home after community college. Mark's dad had just been demoted. The mortgage payments were temporarily difficult, Mom had explained, eyes wide with practiced worry. Just until they got back on their feet. 6 years later, and Dad's job still barely covers the car insurance and his hobbies, his fishing trips, his golf clubs, his collection of vintage model cars that sit untouched in glass cases in the basement. The total mortgage, $2,800 a month. My contribution, $2,000. Their contribution, $800. The math burns in my mind, bright and undeniable. I pull out my phone, open the calculator app, and punch in the numbers with methodical precision. $2,000 x 72 months equals $144,000, $144,000. Gone, not invested, not saved, not even appreciated. Meanwhile, Corbin, 28, and supposedly the entrepreneur of the family, has lived here rent-free since his $50,000 startup crashed and burned 2 years ago. $50,000 that Mom and Dad had somehow found for him, even as I was writing checks for new gutters and property taxes. And Sloane? 22 and attending Riverdale Private College, her $38,000 annual tuition and sorority dues paid without question. Your sister needs to focus on her studies. Mom had explained when I'd asked why Sloane couldn't work part-time like I had. The responsible one. Family code for the ATM. The numbness from the phone call begins to fade, replaced by something colder, quieter. Not anger, anger would be too hot, too messy. This is something else. Something final. I'm done. The word settles in my chest like a stone. Done. They left me. But they left me in the house I paid for, connected to the utilities I managed. They assumed I would just wait. And keep paying. For what? The privilege of being excluded? The honor of funding Maui vacations I wasn't invited to? I don't throw things. I don't scream. Those reactions would give them too much power, confirm their whispered assessments that I'm too emotional, or can't take a joke. Instead, I walk to my home office, the smallest bedroom, the one with the water stain on the ceiling that no one else wanted. I pull open the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet and extract a 3-inch binder, its weight substantial in my hands. 6 years of receipts. 6 years of bank statements. 6 years of warranties for appliances and electronics I purchased when the old ones broke down. 6 years of evidence. I carry the binder to the kitchen table and open my laptop. But I don't book a flight to Maui. I don't compose an angry email. I don't even check social media to see if they've posted sunny photos from the beach yet. I Google local moving companies, Immediate availability. Several options appear, but most are closed for the holiday weekend. One company, however, advertises a premium holiday emergency move service. Their rates are double the normal price. I dial the number. Reliable movers. This is Troy. Hi, Troy. I need to move out of my current residence. Tomorrow morning. Is that possible? Troy sounds surprised but professional. Yes, ma'am, but I should warn you our holiday rates are… That's fine. I cut in. I'll need a truck large enough for several major appliances and furniture pieces. We can handle that. 8 a.m. Work for you? Perfect. I hang up and look around the kitchen. The high-end, front-loading washer and dryer I bought last year after Sloan complained the old ones were gross. The 4-door smart fridge I purchased when the original one died during a heat wave. The $900 espresso machine Corbin and Sloan use every morning without ever buying a single bag of coffee. All in my name. All paid for with my money. They wanted to talk about expenses. Let's talk about expenses. I open my laptop again and search for studio apartments within a 30-minute drive of my office. Something becomes available next week, but I find a complex offering immediate move-in for an additional fee. I make the call, put down the deposit, and schedule the lease signing for tomorrow afternoon. Next, I create a detailed inventory of everything I've purchased for this house. The 80-inch 4K TV from the living room, my $2,500 bonus from last year, the high-speed Wi-Fi router and mesh system, the new dishwasher. Item by item, I catalog what's mine, not in anger, not in vengeance, in simple, cold accounting. 7 days, I think. They'll be gone for 7 days. When they return, expecting the comfort they've always taken for granted, expecting me to have maintained their lives in their absence, they'll find something very different waiting for them. I run my fingers over the binder, feeling the plastic cover, cool and smooth beneath my touch. 6 years of being the responsible one. 6 years of being the invisible foundation that everyone stands on but no one sees. I close the binder. I've been responsible long enough. The moving truck arrives at 8 the next morning. I stand in the driveway, my 3-inch binder tucked under my arm like a shield, watching 3 men in matching blue uniforms climb out. The logo on their truck premium holiday relocations cost me triple the normal rate, worth every penny. Miss Kessler? The foreman approaches, clipboard in hand. We're ready when you are. I nod, opening my binder to the tab section marked Purchases. Let's start in the living room. Inside, I point to the 80-inch 4K TV mounted on the wall. That comes down first. The foreman raises an eyebrow at the massive screen. Nice TV. My $2,500 bonus from last March, I say, tapping the receipt in my binder. The paper is crisp, preserved in a plastic sleeve. The bracket stays it came with the house. The men work with practiced efficiency. One disconnects cables while 2 others carefully unmount the TV. In less than 10 minutes, they're wrapping it in protective blankets. I move through the house like a general, binder open, pointing out each item. This isn't an emotional rampage. It's inventory management. The washer and dryer in the laundry room, I say, leading them down the hall. I bought them after Sloan complained the old ones were gross. I remember her exact words. God, Krista, these machines are from the Stone Age. Can't we get something that doesn't look like it belongs in a gas station bathroom? In the kitchen, the foreman whistles at the massive stainless steel refrigerator. 4-door smart fridge. That's gonna be tricky. It's empty, I assure him. Last night, I'd thrown out everything perishable and packed the rest in coolers now sitting in my car, and I've already disconnected the water line. They remove the refrigerator with careful precision, leaving a gaping hole in the custom cabinetry. The $900 espresso machine is next. I watch as they wrap it, remembering how Corbin and Sloan would use it every morning, leaving their empty cups scattered around the house. Not once in 3 years had either of them bought coffee beans. That was always my job, like everything else. Wi-Fi router and mesh system, I say, pointing to the sleek devices. All 4 nodes throughout the house, the ones that powered Corbin's endless job searches and Sloan's Instagram empire. Room by room, the house empties of everything that's mine. The movers work quickly, professionally, asking few questions. I answer the ones they do ask with calm precision. No, that stays. Yes, that goes. Careful with that, it's fragile. By noon, the truck is half full, and the house already feels different. Hollower, lighter. With each item that leaves, a weight lifts from my shoulders. The ghosts that have haunted me, expectations, obligations, guilt, seem to fade with every empty space created. Taking a break for lunch, ma'am, the foreman tells me. I nod and walk through the quieter house while they eat in their truck. My footsteps echo on the hardwood floors now that the area rugs, also mine, are gone. In the living room, the wall looks naked without the TV. In the kitchen, the refrigerator's absence reveals years of dust and a single magnet that had fallen behind it, a Hawaiian sunset from some previous family vacation I hadn't been invited to. This isn't destruction, I remind myself. This is reclamation. By 4 in the afternoon, they've loaded everything that's mine. I stand in the driveway, signing the paperwork as they secure the truck. Address for delivery? The foreman asks. I give him the information for my new studio apartment. The lease started yesterday, paid 3 months in advance. After they leave, I return to the house. The emptiness is jarring but satisfying. I pull out my phone and start recording, walking from room to room, documenting the condition of the property. No damage to the walls where the TV hung, no scratches on the floors where the furniture slid out. No dents in the door frames, evidence, just in case. In the kitchen, I open cabinets that now hold only the mismatched mugs and cheap plates my parents had before I started upgrading our home. The pantry contains just the basics: my father's sugary cereals, my mother's diet crackers, the cheap coffee no one actually drinks. Upstairs, I enter what was my bedroom. The bed remains, but the premium mattress I bought last year is gone, leaving just the cheap box spring that came with the house. My dresser is gone. My bookshelf is gone. I sit cross-legged on the floor, open my laptop, and begin making calls. First, to the power company. Yes, I need to cancel service at 1342 Oakwood Lane, I say, voice steady. The account is under Krista Kessler. May I ask why you're canceling, Miss Kessler? The representative asks. I'm moving. Simple. Truthful. I see. There will be a final reading tomorrow, and service will be disconnected by 5 p.m. Is there a forwarding address for the final bill? I provide my new address, then make the same call to the water company, and another to cancel the internet service that powered our whole smart home system. Each call takes less than 10 minutes. Each representative is professionally indifferent to my decision. By 6 p.m., I've made all the calls. Every utility will be shut off within 48 hours before my family returns from their Hawaiian paradise. Night falls. The house is dark except for the single lamp I've left plugged in my room. I shower in the now empty bathroom, dry myself with the one towel I've kept out of my luggage, and sleep on a blanket on the floor of my old bedroom. In the morning, I load my remaining bags into my car. I've left nothing behind that's truly mine. In the kitchen, I place my house keys on the counter. Beside them, I stack the new, unpaid utility bills I collected from the mailbox yesterday. All addressed to Mark and Brenda Kessler. All services they've enjoyed without thought because I handled them. I take one last look around the empty house. 6 years of my life. $2,000 a month. $144,000. I lock the door from the inside, step out, and pull it shut behind me with a satisfying click. In my car, I check the time. 6 days until they return from Maui. 6 days until they discover what responsibility actually costs. Tick-tock, I whisper as I drive away, heading toward my new, much smaller, infinitely more peaceful home. 6 days later, the family is back. I'm sitting in my new studio apartment when my phone buzzes with a notification from the Ring doorbell app I never deleted. A final loose end I deliberately left untied. The app shows the Kesslers have returned, dragging oversized suitcases up the front walk. Their faces are tanned, their shoulders slumped with travel fatigue. Brenda clutches a pineapple-shaped souvenir. Mark fumbles with his keys. Sloane and Corbin trail behind, still wearing their matching aloha shirts. Rhett brings up the rear, his neck ringed with a plastic lei. I take a sip of my coffee, turn the volume up on my phone, and watch. Honey, Brenda calls as Mark finally gets the door open. Don't forget the light switch is finicky. They disappear inside. I count down in my head. 3, 2, 1. Mark? Brenda's voice filters through the Ring's microphone. The lights aren't working. Hang on. Mark replies, his voice growing fainter as he moves away from the door. Let me check the breaker. A minute passes. The door remains open, spilling their conversation onto the porch where the Ring camera captures every word. Nothing's working, Mark calls back. The power's out. Did you forget to pay the bill? Brenda asks, irritation edging into her voice. Me? You handle the utilities. I smile as I imagine them standing in the dark hallway, jet-lagged and confused. Corbin pushes past them, phone flashlight activated. His beam sweeps across the living room, then stops. Dad? His voice rises an octave. Where's the TV? The flashlight beam jerks around wildly now, illuminating empty spaces where furniture used to be. What the hell? Mark's heavy footsteps pound across the floor. Sloane screams from the kitchen. The fridge is gone. Everything's gone. I watch as they spill back onto the front porch, faces pale in the dying November sunlight. Brenda's hands shake as she clutches at Mark's sleeve. Someone broke in, she gasps. Call 911. Mark fumbles his phone from his pocket, fingers trembling as he dials. I watch his face contort as he explains the situation to the dispatcher, describing a robbery in progress. Corbin paces the porch, his own phone gripped tightly in his hand. His brow furrows as something occurs to him. The Ring camera, he says suddenly. We can check the footage. Of course Corbin would think of that. The tech guy of the family who couldn't even launch a successful startup with $50,000 of funding. I take another sip of my coffee as I watch him tap at his phone, accessing the same app I'm currently using. I know the exact moment he finds the footage from 3 days ago. His face drains of color, mouth dropping open. She took everything, he stammers. The others crowd around his phone. I can picture the video playing on his screen. Me, clipboard in hand, directing the movers as they carefully load the 80-inch TV, the smart fridge, the washer and dryer, the espresso machine. All documented, all organized, all mine. Krista did this? Brenda's voice breaks on my name. But why would she? Because she's crazy, Sloane cuts in. I told you she was getting weird. Mark takes the phone from Corbin, watching the footage with narrowing eyes. When he looks up, his face is rigid with fury. She can't do this, he growls. This is our house. I set my phone down on the coffee table of my new apartment and walk to the window. Outside, the November sunset paints the sky in shades of orange and purple. My studio is small, but the light here is beautiful. Clean. Mine. My phone starts buzzing again. Not the Ring app this time, but actual calls. One after another. The same numbers over and over, no contact names attached. I pick it up and look at the screen. 52 missed calls in the span of 10 minutes. Then the texts start flowing in from my mother's number. Krista. Call me. Where are you? The house was robbed. I set the phone face down on the table and make myself a fresh cup of coffee. The buzzing continues, persistent as a trapped wasp, as I move around my small kitchen. I take my time, measuring the grounds with precision, waiting for the water to reach the perfect temperature. When I return to the window with my steaming cup, a police car is pulling up in front of my building. Behind it, my father's sedan screeches to a halt, double parking in his haste. They pile out Mark, Brenda, Corbin, Sloane, and Rhett, a gesticulating mass of righteous indignation, as they follow the two officers into my building. My intercom buzzes 3 minutes later. Miss Kessler? The front desk attendant's voice is professionally neutral. There are police officers here asking to speak with you. They say your family is with them. I take a long, slow breath, savoring the moment. 6 years of paying for a house that was never mine. 6 years of being the invisible pillar, the responsible one, the family ATM. 6 years of swallowing my resentment, as they took and took and took. The moment has arrived. The trap I set has sprung perfectly. Ma'am, the police are here, the attendant prompts when I don't immediately respond. With your family. Get. I set my coffee cup down and cross to my desk. My hand comes to rest on the 3-inch binder filled with receipts, warranties, and bank statements. 6 years of meticulous documentation. 6 years of evidence. Tell the policemen only they can come in, I reply. I pick up the binder, feeling its reassuring weight in my hands. I don't rush. This moment belongs to me. The knock comes at exactly 4:17 p.m. 2 sharp raps, official and unyielding. I've been expecting this since the building manager called. Ma'am, your family downstairs is claiming you've stolen their television and appliances. The officer's voice is neutral, professional. He's young, maybe 30, with close-cropped hair and a name tag reading, Officer Brennan. His partner, older with salt and pepper hair, stands slightly behind, watching my face for a reaction. I don't give him one. Please come in, I say, stepping back from my apartment door. I have coffee. The studio is small but immaculate. My 80-inch TV dominates one wall, the espresso machine gleams on the counter. I took everything that was mine, fits perfectly in this space. I've been waiting for this moment for 9 days. Black or cream? I ask, pouring from the carafe. Black. Thank you, Officer Brennan says, his eyes scanning the apartment. I hand him the mug, then reach for my 3-inch binder sitting ready on the counter. The weight of it is reassuring in my hands. 6 years of meticulous documentation. 6 years of receipts, bank statements, and warranties, all organized by date, item, and payment method. This should clarify things, I say, handing him the binder. The lead officer takes it, balancing his coffee in one hand. He flips it open, his expression unchanging as he turns the plastic-protected pages. He pauses at the invoice for the TV. This is the television they're referring to? The 80-inch 4K? Yes, I reply, purchased with my year-end bonus, $2,500 plus tax. He nods, flipping more pages. His finger traces down a highlighted bank statement, then stops at a warranty card with my name printed clearly on it. He finds the bill of sale for the fridge, pauses at the washer and dryer documentation, raises an eyebrow at the espresso machine receipt. The older officer leans in, murmuring something I can't hear. Officer Brennan nods, then closes the binder. Everything appears to be in your name, Miss Kessler, he says, handing it back. His eyes meet mine, and I see something shift there, a reassessment. Ma'am, do you want us to file a harassment report on your behalf? The question hangs in the air between us. 6 years of silent contribution, 6 years of being the responsible one, the ATM. 6 years of watching Corbin waste $50,000 on a startup that never started up. 6 years of Sloane's private college tuition and sorority dues being paid without question, while I covered mortgage payments that should have been my parents' responsibility. No, I say finally. That won't be necessary. He nods, understanding in his eyes. We'll take care of it. Thank you for the coffee. I don't follow them to the door. I don't need to watch what happens next. Through my open window, I hear the commotion 3 floors down. My father's voice, rising in indignation. My mother's tearful protests. It's a civil matter. Officer Brennan's voice carries up clearly. She has provided documentation of ownership for all items in question. You need to leave the property now, or be cited for trespassing. Silence follows, then the slam of car doors. I close my window. 3 weeks later, I'm pushing my cart through the produce section of Greenway Market when I spot them. Corbin and Sloane, huddled near the organic apples, scanning the store, waiting for me. I consider abandoning my half-filled cart, but something hardened inside me weeks ago hasn't softened. I push forward. Sloane spots me first, her eyes narrowing. At 22, she looks older suddenly, the privilege and certainty drained from her face. This isn't funny, Krista. She hisses as I reach for a bag of Honeycrisp apples. Mom is crying every day. You need to fix this. I place the apples in my cart, moving past her without response. Corbin steps into my path. His usually perfect hair is uncombed, his designer shirt wrinkled. Just turn the internet back on, he says, desperation edging his voice. How am I supposed to apply for jobs? You've gone too far. I look at my 28-year-old brother, really look at him. The failed entrepreneur, the eternal student, the perpetual child. You're 28, Corbin, I say, the words falling like stones between us. Get your own Wi-Fi. I push my cart past them, their protests fading behind me. The weight of the binder isn't in my hands anymore, but I feel lighter all the same. 2 months later, a manila envelope arrives at my door. Inside, a summons to small claims court. They're suing me for $5,000 in emotional damages and stolen property. My mother's signature on the complaint form is shaky but determined. They tried everything else. This is their last stand. The courtroom is smaller than I expected, with worn wooden benches and fluorescent lights that buzz overhead. My parents sit across the aisle, not looking at me. Corbin and Sloane aren't here. Perhaps they couldn't be bothered to wake up in time for the 9 a.m. hearing. Kessler versus Kessler, the clerk calls. We approach the bench. My father speaks first, a carefully rehearsed speech about family obligations and property rights. He mentions the house, their house, and how I abandoned them without warning. He talks about the difficulties they've faced without proper appliances, about the emotional toll, about my theft of family items. When he finishes, the judge turns to me. And your response, Miss Kessler? I don't speak. Instead, I place my 3-inch binder on his desk. The sound it makes is final, definitive. He opens it, frowning slightly at first, then with increasing interest as he turns the pages. 5 minutes pass in silence as he reviews bank statements, receipts, and utility bills in my name. Mr. Kessler, he says finally, closing the binder. These items appear to be legally purchased and owned by your daughter. Furthermore, I see evidence here that she contributed $2,000 monthly toward your mortgage for 6 years while living in your home. Is that correct? My father shifts uncomfortably. Well, yes, but... And you're claiming she stole property that she herself purchased? It was for the family, my mother interjects. She can't just take it. The judge's expression hardens. Mrs. Kessler, I suggest you not speak out of turn. He turns back to my father. This case is dismissed. And Mr. Kessler, I would caution you about bringing frivolous claims to this court. There are penalties for perjury. The gavel comes down with a crack that echoes through the small courtroom. My parents don't look at me as they leave. I gather my binder and walk out alone, into the cold air. I don't look back. I don't need to. 4 months later, I'm sitting on the small balcony of my studio apartment. The air is cold against my skin, but I don't mind. I wrap my fingers around a steaming mug of coffee, the expensive kind Corbin used to drain from my machine without ever buying a replacement bag. My apartment isn't much. 400 square feet that would fit inside the Kessler family living room with space to spare. But every inch of it is mine. Every utility bill has only my name on it. The silence here isn't the hollow absence of people who should be present. It's peace earned and protected. Uncle Dean called last week. He waited until he knew I'd be home from work, his voice careful when I answered. The house is gone, he said without preamble. Foreclosed after 3 months. They couldn't make the payments. I took a sip of tea, letting the information settle. Where are they living now? 2-bedroom rental across town. Mark and Brenda took the master. Rhett's on the couch. Sloane and Corbin are sharing the 2nd bedroom. He paused. Sloane had to leave Westlake. She's at community college now. Westlake University. $45,000 a year in tuition alone. Sorority dues on top of that. All while I quietly transferred $2,000 to my parents' account every month for 6 years. Krista, they're really struggling, Uncle Dean said, his voice dropping into that guilt-inducing register family's perfect over generations. Did they ask you to call me? Not exactly, but... Then they're not struggling enough, I replied, surprised by my own steadiness. They'll figure it out. They're adults. The consequences arrived like dominoes falling. The 2-bedroom apartment. Sloane's transfer, my father having to find an actual full-time job for the first time in 15 years. My mother selling her jewelry on Facebook Marketplace. Reality, crashing down on people who thought they could fly forever on someone else's wings. I take another sip of coffee, watching the sun climb higher. My phone buzzes with a notification. LinkedIn. I tap the screen. Corbin Kessler has sent you a message. I open it with mild curiosity. Hey sis. Hope you're doing well. Listen, I've got an interview at Meridian Tech next week. Any chance you could be a reference? You know how reliable I am when I put my mind to something. I stare at the message, my finger hovering over the screen. 28 years old, and still convinced the world owes him a cushioned landing. I click ignore, then block his profile for good measure. 4 months ago, I woke up in a cold, silent house, abandoned by the people who should have been there. I remember standing in that kitchen, the moment everything crystallized, the soft click of realization like a lock turning. Now I sit in my own space, smaller but infinitely more honest. My bills are reasonable because I only pay for what I need, My shelves hold books I actually read. My refrigerator contains food only I eat. People ask if I ever feel guilty. Former coworkers who heard through the grapevine. The few friends who know the whole story. They want to know if I wonder whether I went too far, if I think about my family struggling in their cramped apartment while I sit here with my expensive coffee maker and my quiet mornings. I take a final sip, letting the rich flavor linger on my tongue. No, I don't. For the first time in my life, the silence is actually mine. The fluorescent lights in the South Side Chicago Police Precinct buzz overhead like angry wasps. It's 2 a.m, and I can taste copper in my mouth from biting the inside of my cheek during the drive here. When Sergeant Miller called, his voice was careful, measured. "Miss Baker, we have your niece and nephew here. They're safe, but we need you to come down." I'd thrown on whatever clothes I could find and driven through the blizzard, gripping my steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Cooper and Piper are here. They're safe. That's all that matters. But Miller doesn't lead me to the children. His hand on my elbow is firm, almost forceful, as he guides me past the waiting area where I catch a glimpse of silver emergency blankets. He steers me into an interrogation room instead. The door closes with a click that sounds too final. Miller drops a plastic evidence bag on the metal table between us. Inside is a crumpled note, and even through the clouded plastic, I can see my name scrawled across it in Sloane's handwriting. "Miss Baker." Miller's voice has lost all warmth. "Can you explain why a wealthy Lincoln Park architect would send 2 small children to a frozen industrial wasteland in the middle of a blizzard?" The words hit me like a fist to the stomach. "What? I didn't—" "Child abandonment is a felony in Illinois." He leans forward, and I can smell the coffee on his breath. "Child trafficking carries even heavier penalties. You want to start explaining?" My hands shake. This isn't real. This can't be happening. There's been a mistake, I say, but my voice comes out strangled. I live at 2400 North Clark, Lincoln Park. The children, where were they found? Miller's eyes don't leave my face. 2400 South Clark Street, an abandoned industrial park, during a blizzard warning, dressed in summer clothes. The difference hits me like ice water. North versus south. 1 letter. 2 completely different worlds. My address is tree-lined streets and boutique coffee shops. South Clark at that number is warehouses and broken streetlights and nowhere a child should ever be, especially not at night, especially not in January. I have to stop, breathe. I told my sister no. I sent her an email. I have proof. Miller crosses his arms. People send emails to cover their tracks all the time, Miss Baker. You'd be surprised how often we see that. 12 hours ago, I was at my drafting table, racing against a deadline that could make or break my career. The city park bid. 3 years of work, compressed into one final presentation due Monday morning. When Sloane called, I was eyebrow deep in elevation drawings. "Ren, thank God you answered." Her voice had that manic edge I've learned to recognize. "I need you to watch Cooper and Piper tonight. Preston surprised me with a trip to Aspen and we're leaving in 2 hours. I can't. I told you last week I have that deadline. This is important, Ren. Family is important." The familiar guilt tried to claw its way up my throat, but I'd swallowed it down. "I will not be home tonight. Do not bring them to my apartment. I will not answer the door." I'd hung up and immediately sent an email at 3:30 p.m., just to be clear, just to have it in writing. I will not be home. Do not bring them. I will not open the door. Now Miller is watching me like I'm a liar, like I'm the kind of person who would endanger children. "The email could have been sent after the fact," he says. "Or you could have changed your mind and panicked when they didn't show up. Can I see them?" My voice cracks. "Please, I need to see that they're okay." Something shifts in Miller's expression. Maybe it's the desperation in my voice. Or maybe he's just giving me enough rope to hang myself. He stands up. "Follow me." I push back my chair and follow him down the hall to a darkened observation room. Through the one-way glass, I see them. Cooper is wrapped in one of those silver emergency blankets, the kind marathoners wear. He's shaking so hard I can see it from here, his whole body convulsing with cold or shock or both. Piper sits next to him, clutching her stuffed bear, and her eyes are vacant, empty, like she's somewhere else entirely, somewhere her mind had to go to survive what happened tonight. My knees buckle. I catch myself on the glass. That fog descends, the one that's been my companion for 28 years. the voice that whispers. Fix this. Protect Sloane. Take the blame. You're the responsible one. That's your job. I could do it. I could tell Miller it was all a misunderstanding, that I'd meant to say yes, that the address confusion was an honest mistake. I could make this go away for everyone. Everyone except Cooper and Piper. The Uber driver, Miller says behind me, was told their father was waiting for them. She dropped them at the curb and drove away. I close my eyes. You should thank God for Mr. Henderson, the night security guard at the industrial park. If he hadn't heard them banging on his booth, screaming for help. Miller pauses, lets the silence fill in what he's not saying. You'd be identifying bodies at the morgue right now, Miss Baker. 2 frozen children. The blood drains from my face so fast I have to grip the windowsill. This wasn't a mistake. This was calculated. Sloane knew I said no. She read that email I checked, and the read receipt showed 3:47 p.m. She'd opened it, absorbed every word, and then she'd done this anyway. Punishment for daring to set a boundary. Punishment for choosing my career over her convenience. She'd sent them to die. I turned to face Miller. My hands are still shaking, but my voice is steady. I didn't call that Uber. I have the email I sent refusing to babysit. I have proof I told her no. I meet his eyes and don't look away, and I'm not covering for her this time. The words feel like stepping off a cliff. 28 years of conditioning, of being the good daughter, the reliable sister, the family fixer, all of it crumbles away. Miller studies my face for a long moment. Then he motions back toward the hallway. Let's go back to the table, Miss Baker. We'll start from the beginning. Miller's phone sits on the metal table between us like a grenade. You said you can prove you told her no. Let's see it. My fingers fumble with my phone, pulling up the email thread. The timestamp glares back at me. 3:30 p.m. Read receipt. 3:47 p.m. I slide the phone across to Miller, watching his eyes scan the words I'd typed 12 hours ago, back when I'd still believed a clear boundary might be enough. I need to make a call, I say. My voice sounds hollow. Declan, her husband, he's in Cleveland for a conference. He can verify I never agreed to this. Miller studies me for another long moment, then nods. FaceTime. I want to see his face when he answers. My hands shake as I dial. The phone rings once, twice. Then Declan's face fills the screen, the quiet hum of a hotel room behind him. He rubs his eyes, looking exhausted. Ren? His voice is rough with sleep. I just got into Cleveland. It's 3 a.m, what? Miller leans into the frame. Mr. Montgomery, this is Sergeant Miller, Chicago Police. I need you to verify something for me. Did your wife tell you that her sister agreed to watch your children tonight? Declan's face goes white. Actually white, like someone pulled a plug and drained all the blood out. Watch the kids? Ren's working tonight. She told Sloane she couldn't. He stops. I watch understanding crash over him like a wave. Where are Cooper and Piper? Safe, Miller says. Barely. They were dropped off at an abandoned industrial park on the south side during a blizzard. We found them at 2400 South Clark Street. South Clark? Declan's voice cracks. Ren lives on North Clark. How did... Another pause. Longer this time. When he speaks again, his voice is ice. I need to access my home security system. Ring camera. Give me 2 minutes. Miller and I sit in silence while Declan works. I can hear him typing, muttering under his breath, the fury building in each keystroke. Then my phone buzzes. A video file. Miller opens it on his department laptop. The timestamp reads 5 p.m. Our house. The front door. Sloane staggers into frame. A wine glass dangles from her left hand, the stem gripped so loosely it's a miracle it doesn't shatter on the floor. She's swaying, actually swaying, like a tree in high wind. Cooper appears, his voice small on the recording. Mommy, where's our coats? She doesn't answer, just pushes him toward the door with her free hand. Piper comes next, wearing a summer dress in January. Sloane shoves them both outside and the door slams. Not once does she look at her phone. Not once does she check the Uber destination. She sends her children into a blizzard in summer clothes and goes back inside for more wine. Miller's jaw tightens. I'll need that file sent to this email address. Already done, Declan says through the phone. His voice sounds like gravel. I'm getting on the next flight back. Don't let her anywhere near my kids. The call ends. Miller closes his laptop with a click that echoes in the small room. You're cleared, Miss Baker. I'll need your formal statement, but you're not being charged. He stands. Your sister, however, will be arrested for child endangerment the moment we locate her. The relief should feel bigger. Instead, it's just a small crack of light in a very dark room. 4 hours later, I'm sitting in the precinct's waiting area when they arrive. Preston and Lenore Baker sweep through the doors like they own the building, their designer luggage still tagged from the airport. They must have turned around mid-flight when Miller contacted them. They walk right past the room where their grandchildren are wrapped in blankets, still shaking. Walk right past them without a glance. Preston spots me and changes trajectory. Lenore follows, her heels clicking on the linoleum like a countdown. Ren, Preston's voice is clipped. We need to talk, privately. I'm not leaving the children. The children are fine. Lenore's hand lands on my arm, perfectly manicured nails digging in just enough to hurt. What we need to discuss is damage control. Do you have any idea what this will do to Preston's company stock if it hits the police blotter? I stare at her. Your grandchildren almost froze to death. Don't be dramatic. Preston pulls out his checkbook. Right there in the police station, he pulls out his checkbook like we're at a country club settling a golf bet. He writes with smooth, practiced strokes, then slides the check across the table. $50,000. Made out to me, the memo line is blank. Consider it a gift. Preston says, tapping the paper. An early birthday present, but gifts are for family members who support each other, Ren, not for those who cause scandals. He lowers his voice. Tell the police it was a family miscommunication. You gave Sloan the wrong address by accident. Do that, and the check is yours. No harm done, he adds. No harm? My voice comes out strangled. Cooper was hypothermic. Piper won't speak. Ace. Lenore leans in close. The smell of her perfume makes my stomach turn. This is what family does, Ren. We protect each other. You tell them it was a mistake, and this all goes away. Think of Sloan. Think of her reputation. Something inside me breaks. Not shatters, just quietly disconnects, like a rope that's been fraying for years, finally giving way. I pull out my phone and open the voice recording app. Then I slide it back into my pocket, still recording. So, you want me to lie to the police? I say clearly. Tell them I gave Sloan the wrong address, in exchange for $50,000. Preston's face flushes. Don't make this sound sordid. We're offering to forgive your student loans. A gift in exchange for perjury. Think about the family, Lenore hisses. Think about everything we've done for you. I pick up the check. For a moment, I just look at it. A $50,000. My student debt, gone. The pressure, gone. All I have to do is lie. All I have to do is let them win one more time. I tear it in half. The sound is surprisingly loud in the quiet waiting area. Preston's face goes from red to purple. I'm not covering for her anymore, I say. Not for you. Not for anyone. You'll regret this. Preston's voice drops low. Dangerous. You have no idea what you've just done. I know exactly what I've done. The precinct doors open again. Declan walks in, ignoring Preston and Lenore completely. He looks ragged, like he ran all the way from O'Hare, but he goes straight to the room where the children are, drops to his knees, and pulls them both into his arms. The first parent to prioritize them all night. Behind him, a woman in a charcoal suitcase enters. Elena Russo. The family law attorney I called 2 hours ago while sitting in this waiting area, watching my parents' true natures reveal themselves. Elena's eyes meet mine. She nods once. The war has started. But this time, I'm not fighting alone. In the morning, I'm staring at my phone when the first notification pops up. A Facebook tag, then another, then 5 more in rapid succession. My stomach drops before I even open them. Sloane's face fills my screen, makeup streaked artfully down her cheeks. The photo is professionally lit, like she waited for the golden hour to post her misery. The caption makes my hands shake. When your own sister turns against you during the darkest moment of your life, I trusted her with my babies. I don't understand what went wrong, praying for understanding and forgiveness. The comments are already piling up, dozens of them. Hundreds. Oh my God, Sloan, I'm so sorry. Family should stick together. This is awful. What kind of sister does this? My phone rings. Aunt Carol. I silence it. It rings again. Uncle Jim. Then Cousin Beth. Then numbers I don't even recognize. I'm sitting on my apartment floor in yesterday's clothes, watching my entire extended family turn against me in real time, when my work phone buzzes. Marcus wants to see me. Now. The elevator ride to the senior partner's office feels like riding to my execution. I've worked at this firm for 6 years, clawed my way up from intern to associate. The City Park bid was supposed to be my breakthrough, proof I could handle major projects. Now I'm about to lose everything because my sister is a monster, and my parents have money. Marcus's assistant won't meet my eyes as she waves me in. He's standing at his window overlooking the Chicago River, hands clasped behind his back. On his desk, I can see the glow of his laptop screen. Sit down, Ren. I sit. My throat is so tight I can barely swallow. Marcus turns around, and I brace for the words. We have to let you go. The firm's reputation. I'm sure you understand. Instead, he rotates his laptop to face me. The email is from Preston Baker. Subject line: urgent matter regarding employee conduct. I skim it. Each word a fresh knife wound. Child endangerment. Police investigation. Unfit to represent the firm. The contract he's referencing, $2.3 million for a mixed-use development in Evanston, sits there like a threat. Keep Ren Baker employed, lose the contract. Mr. Baker sent this to me and the other 3 senior partners at 6:42 this morning, Marcus says. I can't breathe. This is it. 6 years, gone. I don't like bullies, Ren. My head snaps up. Marcus closes the laptop with a deliberate click. I've known Preston Baker for 15 years. He's a mediocre developer who inherited his father's company and has been coasting ever since. His contracts are never as valuable as he claims, and his threats are usually empty. The $2.3 million is actually $1.8 million, and we both know it. Marcus sits down across from me. More importantly, I called Sergeant Miller this morning. He told me what really happened. Showed me the ring footage. The relief hits so hard I have to grip the chair arms. You're not firing me? Firing you. Marcus actually laughs, but there's no humor in it. Ren, you just saved 2 children from freezing to death. Your sister belongs in jail, and your father belongs in the same cell for trying to cover it up. He leans forward. You have the firm's full support, whatever you need. Take paid leave if you need time to handle the legal battle. Use our attorneys if it helps. But you are not losing your job over this. Something cracks open in my chest. For the first time in 3 days, I can take a full breath. I don't know what to say. Say you'll bury them. Marcus's eyes are steel. People like your father think money makes them untouchable. Prove him wrong. When I leave his office 20 minutes later, I'm crying in the elevator. But these aren't tears of despair anymore. That evening, I'm at the hotel where Declan has set up temporary residence with Cooper and Piper. It's an extended stay place in Lincoln Park, close enough to my apartment that I can walk over, close enough that the kids don't feel completely uprooted. The room smells like pasta sauce. Declan is at the kitchenette, stirring a pot of spaghetti while Cooper sits at the small table, pencil moving carefully across paper. Aunt Ren! Piper crashes into my legs, and I scoop her up. She's warm and solid and alive. Hey, Butterfly. What are you drawing? Cooper's teaching me buildings. She wriggles down and drags me to the table. Cooper's sketch is surprisingly good. Clean lines, proper perspective. It's my apartment building, rendered in careful detail. This is amazing, Coop. He shrugs, but his ears turn pink. You made it look easy when you showed me your drawings. We eat dinner together. Real dinner, not the frozen meals I usually microwave. Declan made garlic bread. There's salad. Piper tells me about a butterfly she saw even though it's January and I'm pretty sure she imagined it. Cooper stays quiet but eats 3 helpings. It feels normal. Bizarrely, impossibly normal. After dinner, while Declan does dishes, Piper climbs into my lap on the couch. Aunt Ren? Her voice is small. Are you mad at Mommy? Every answer I could give feels like a landmine. I choose my words carefully. I'm sad she made choices that hurt you. Piper nods against my shoulder. She was drinking the special juice. the kind that makes her voice loud. Wine. She means wine. I close my eyes and hold her tighter. Cooper appears in the doorway, his sketch pad clutched to his chest. He's been so quiet since the police station, barely speaking above a whisper. I thought we were going to die in the snow. The words are flat, factual, worse than crying would be. Declan freezes at the sink, his back rigid. I kept telling Piper we'd be okay, but I didn't believe it. It was so cold. And there was nobody there, just empty buildings and snow. Cooper's knuckles are white around his sketch pad. I couldn't feel my fingers. Piper stopped crying and I thought. I cross the room and pull him into my arms. He's 9 years old and he shouldn't know what it feels like to think he's dying. You were so brave. I whisper into his hair. You kept your sister safe. You found help. You were so brave. I don't want to be brave. His voice cracks. I want to be a kid. Later, after both children are asleep in the bedroom, Declan and I sit in the dim kitchenette. He's drinking coffee even though it's nearly midnight. I'm drinking tea that's gone cold. I've been blind, he says finally. She's been drinking for years, hasn't she? I could lie. Protect Sloane one more time. But Cooper's words are still echoing in my head. I thought we were going to die. Yes, since before Piper was born. Declan's jaw tightens. You knew. I knew. I covered for her. I made excuses. The confession tastes like ash. I thought I was helping. I thought if I just supported her enough, loved her enough, she'd stop. We can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. The silence stretches between us, but it's not uncomfortable. We're both mourning the same thing, the family we thought we had. I'm filing for sole custody tomorrow, Declan says. My phone buzzes before I can respond. Elena Russo, texting at midnight. Sloane filed an emergency motion for immediate return of the children, hearing in 10 days. She's claiming you gave the driver the wrong address out of jealousy, and that Declan is guilty of parental kidnapping. I show Declan the message. His face goes carefully blank, the way it does when he's furious. Let her try, he says quietly. My phone buzzes again. This time it's a text from an unknown number, but I know who it is before I even read it. You started this war. We'll finish it. Preston. I look at Declan. He's staring at the bedroom door, where his children are finally sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. Are we ready for this? I ask. We're protecting the children. His voice is steady. Final. Whatever it takes. The next morning, Elena's office smells like old books and strong coffee. We sit in leather chairs that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and she's laying out her battle plan with the precision of a surgeon marking incision points. We're not going for the knockout in the preliminary hearing, she says, sliding a yellow legal pad across the desk. Her handwriting is sharp, angular. We're setting a trap. Declan leans forward. But we have the email, the ring footage. We can end this now. The footage shows negligence, maybe intoxication, Elena counters, tapping her pen against the pad. But a good lawyer and Preston will hire the best will argue it was a momentary lapse in judgment, not criminal intent. They'll plead for rehab and family therapy. You want that? No, I say instantly. Then we need her to lie, Elena says. If she testifies under oath that you agreed to watch them, and we prove she's lying, that destroys her credibility completely. It proves she's manipulative and unfit. That's how we get full custody, not just temporary. She looks between us. She'll feel confident, she'll double down. And when we prove she lied under oath in the custody trial, Judge Okonkwo will throw the book at her. Declan's jaw tightens. How long do we have to wait? 30 days after the preliminary. Court schedules are backed up. Elena closes the legal pad with a snap. Can you both hold your nerve that long? Kine. I think about Cooper's shaking hands, Piper's vacant stare through the police station glass. I think about Sloane's wine glass caught on camera, the way she shoved them out the door into a blizzard. Whatever it takes, I say. On the preliminary hearing, the Cook County Family Court is all dark wood paneling and fluorescent lighting, the kind of institutional space designed to make you feel small. The gallery benches are hard, unforgiving. I chose my outfit carefully this morning, a simple gray sweater, no jewelry, my hair pulled back. I want to look exhausted, defeated. It's not hard to fake. Sloane sweeps in 20 minutes before the hearing, wearing cream-colored wool and understated pearls. Her makeup is perfect, her expression carefully composed into wounded dignity. She doesn't look at me as she takes her seat at the plaintiff's table. Preston and Lenore claim the front row of the gallery like it's a box seat at the opera. Preston's suit probably costs more than my car payment. Lenore's perfume reaches me 3 rows back, something expensive and cloying. When Judge Patricia Okonkwo enters, we all rise. She's a tall black woman with silver-streaked hair and the kind of face that's seen every lie the legal system has to offer. Her eyes sweep the courtroom with the efficiency of someone who has no patience for games. Be seated. Her voice cuts through the nervous shuffling. Let's proceed. Sloane's attorney is a smooth-talking partner from some downtown firm Preston probably plays golf with. He calls Sloane to the stand, and she takes the oath with her hand on the Bible, her voice clear and steady. Miss Baker Montgomery. The attorney begins. Can you tell the court what happened on the night of January 14th? Sloane dabs at her eyes with a tissue, though I notice they're dry. I was supposed to leave for a business trip with my father. I'd arranged for my sister Wren to watch Cooper and Piper. She'd agreed to babysit. My fingernails dig into my palms. How did you arrange this? The attorney prompts. We spoke on the phone that afternoon. She said yes, to send them over. Sloane's voice wavers, perfectly calibrated. I gave the Uber driver her address 2400 North Clark Street, where Wren lives in Lincoln Park. I don't know how the children ended up on the south side. Perhaps the driver made a mistake. Perhaps there was confusion. Elena sits beside me, writing in her legal pad. She doesn't object, doesn't interrupt, just lets the lies stack up, like kindling, waiting for a match. Are you certain your sister agreed to watch the children? The attorney asks. Absolutely certain. She said yes on the phone. I would never have sent them otherwise. The tissue comes up again. This time Sloane actually squeezes out a tear. No further questions, Your Honor. Judge Okonkwo looks at Elena. Cross-examination? Elena rises slowly. She's wearing a charcoal suit that makes her look like a blade. Just a few questions, Your Honor. She approaches the witness stand, and I can see Sloane's shoulders relax slightly. This will be quick. Painless. Miss Baker Montgomery, you testified that your sister verbally agreed to babysit. Is that correct? Yes. And you gave the driver her Lincoln Park address? Yes. 2400 North Clark. You're certain she agreed? Under oath, you're testifying that Wren Baker told you yes? Something flickers in Sloane's eyes. Uncertainty, maybe, or the first whisper of suspicion. But she's committed now. She can't back down in front of Preston and Lenore, in front of the judge. Absolutely certain, she said yes. Elena nods slowly, like she's accepting this answer. No further questions, Your Honor. That's it. No email, no ring footage, no dramatic reveal. Sloane's attorney looks confused, and I can see Preston lean forward, whispering something to Lenore. Judge Okonkwo reviews her notes. This appears to be a family miscommunication that resulted in a dangerous situation. Miss Baker, I'm troubled that you didn't ensure clearer arrangements for the children's safety. The words land like stones. I force myself not to react. However, given the circumstances and the lack of clear evidence, I'm maintaining the status quo. Mr. Montgomery retains temporary custody. Miss Baker Montgomery, you're granted supervised visitation twice weekly, supervised by a court-appointed social worker. The gavel comes down. Next case. The courtroom empties into the marble hallway, and Sloane is immediately surrounded by Preston and Lenore. Their smiles are triumphant, vicious. Preston catches my eye as I pass. He steps deliberately into my path. You should have taken the check, Wren. His voice is low, meant only for me. Family always wins. Lenore's hand touches my arm, her grip tight enough to bruise. This isn't over, dear, but you've already lost. Sloane is performing for a small cluster of reporters who somehow got wind of the hearing. I just want my babies back, she says, voice breaking. A mother's love never gives up. The cameras eat it up. I keep walking toward the parking garage, my footsteps echoing in the stairwell. Declan and Elena follow silently. We don't speak until we're inside Elena's car. Doors closed, engine running. Elena closes her leather notebook with a sharp snap. She's on the record now, she says. Every lie is documented, time-stamped, under oath. I stare at the concrete pillar in front of us. But we lost today. We let her think she won. Elena's smile is cold, predatory. Now we own her. Declan's hands grip the steering wheel. Understanding dawns across his face. She just committed perjury. And in 30 days, Elena says, we prove it. The concrete pillar blurs as my eyes fill. Not with defeat, with something sharper, cleaner, hope. On the second confrontation, the courtroom feels smaller this time, more suffocating. Maybe it's the press packed into the gallery, their cameras clicking like hungry insects. Maybe it's the way Preston sits front and center, his charcoal suit pressed sharp enough to draw blood, that same smug smile playing at his lips. Sloane sweeps in wearing ivory, of course, ivory, the color of innocence, her hair styled in soft waves that frame her face. She clutches tissues in one hand like props in a play she's rehearsed too many times. The society page photographers eat it up. I can already see the headline, Mother Fights for Her Children. I smooth my plain gray sweater and try not to feel small. Declan's hand finds mine under the table, just for a second. His palm is steady, warm. Elena sits beside us, her slim folder closed on the table in front of her. She looks almost bored, flipping through her phone while we wait for Judge Okonkwo to enter. All rise. The courtroom rustles to its feet. Judge Okonkwo's face is carved stone as she takes her seat, and I remember the way she'd looked at me during the preliminary hearing, like I was careless, irresponsible. A woman who couldn't even communicate properly with her own sister. Today, that's going to change. Miss Russo, the judge says, you may call your first witness. Elena stands, and there's something predatory in the way she moves. Your Honor, I'd like to recall Sloane Baker Montgomery to the stand. Sloane's attorney objects, of course, but the judge waves him off. Sloane walks to the witness stand with her chin high, confident. She thinks this is just cleanup, a formality before her inevitable victory. The bailiff reminds her she's still under oath from her earlier testimony. Mrs. Montgomery. Elena begins, her voice deceptively gentle. During the preliminary hearing last month, you testified under oath about the events of January 14th. Is that correct? Yes. Sloane's voice is steady. And you stated that your sister, Wren Baker, verbally agreed to babysit your children that evening, correct? That's right. Sloane glances at the jury, playing wounded. She said yes, and then she just wasn't there. And you gave the Uber driver her address? 2400 North Clark Street? Of course I did. Sloane's confidence grows. I would never send my children to the wrong place. I'm their mother. The courtroom murmurs its approval. Preston nods, satisfied. Elena turns to the screen, mounted beside the judge's bench. Your Honor, I'd like to enter Exhibit A into evidence. The projector hums to life. An email fills the screen, and I watch Sloane's face drain of color as she reads her own name in the recipient line. From Wren Baker to Sloane Montgomery sent, January 14, 3:30 p.m. Subject, tonight. I will not be home. Do not bring them. I will not open the door. Read receipt. Open January 14, 3:47 p.m. The timestamp glows like an accusation. 6 hours before she sent those children into the blizzard, the courtroom erupts in whispers. Someone in the press section gasps audibly. Mrs. Montgomery. Elena's voice cuts through the noise. You opened this email at 3:47 p.m. You read it, and yet you testified under oath that your sister agreed to babysit. Which statement is true? Sloane's mouth opens, closes. Her lawyer is on his feet, objecting, but Judge Okonkwo silences him with a look that could freeze fire. Answer the question, Mrs. Montgomery. I forgot about the email. I thought, you forgot an email you opened 6 hours before the incident? Elena doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. An email that explicitly stated, in capital letters, that Miss Baker would not be home? The tissues in Sloane's hand are shredded now, little white flakes falling to the floor. Let's move on, Elena says. Your Honor, I'd like to play Exhibit B. The screen shifts to video footage. I recognize the angle immediately, the ring camera from Sloane and Declan's front door. The timestamp reads 5 p.m. The Sloane on screen is nothing like the Sloane on the witness stand. Her hair is messy, her cashmere sweater askew. She's holding a wine glass in one hand, and when she moves, she sways. Not dramatically, just enough to notice. Cooper appears at her side, already wearing his jacket. "Mommy, where's our coats?" Sloane ignores him. She opens the door, the blizzard is visible even through the camera, snow driving sideways and ushers both children outside. Piper is wearing a thin cotton dress amidst a blizzard. The gallery reacts with audible horror. I hear someone say, "Oh my God." Sloane never checks her phone, never confirms the address with the Uber driver idling at the curb. She just closes the door, wineglass still in hand, and the last image before the footage ends is Cooper's small face turning back toward the house, confused and frightened. Judge Okonkwo's expression has gone from stone to thunder. "Mrs. Montgomery," Elena says, and her voice is sharp enough to cut. "Were you intoxicated when you sent your children out into a blizzard warning, without proper winter clothing?" "I had one glass." "One glass? The footage shows you holding wine at 5 p.m., hours before your scheduled flight. How many glasses had you consumed by that point?" Sloane's lawyer tries to object again. The judge overrules him without looking away from Sloane. "I don't remember exactly." "You don't remember?" Elena nods slowly. "Just like you didn't remember the email." My hands are clenched so tight my nails cut into my palms. Declan's breathing has gone shallow beside me. "Your Honor," Elena continues, "I have one final piece of evidence. Exhibit C." She presses play on the audio file, and Preston's voice fills the courtroom, crystal clear, unmistakable. "Consider it a gift, an early birthday present." My mother's voice follows, saccharine and poisonous. "Tell them you gave her the wrong address. These things happen." Preston again, "Do that, and the check is yours." The recording continues for 30 seconds. 30 seconds of my parents trying to buy my silence, to make me complicit in endangering their own grandchildren. Preston is on his feet, his face purple. "That recording is illegal. She didn't have permission." "Your conversation took place in a police station waiting area, Mr. Baker," Judge Okonkwo says, and her voice could shatter glass. "There is no reasonable expectation of privacy in a public municipal building. The recording is admissible. Sit down." He sits. The judge turns to Sloane. "And I've never seen anyone look so small on a witness stand. Mrs. Montgomery, you have committed perjury in my courtroom. You have demonstrated a pattern of reckless endangerment of your own children. You have shown a willingness to lie under oath to obtain custody of children you nearly killed through negligence." She pauses, and the silence is deafening. "Bailiff, detain the witness." Sloane screams, actually screams, a high-pitched wail that echoes off the wood-paneled walls. Her lawyer is protesting, but 2 bailiffs are already moving toward the witness stand. "Your Honor, please. You will be charged with perjury, child endangerment, and reckless conduct." Judge Okonkwo continues, her voice cutting through Sloane's sobs. "You have betrayed every trust placed in you as a mother and as an officer of this court." The bailiffs take Sloane by the arms. Her mascara is running now, black streaks down her ivory dress. She's crying real tears, the kind that come from genuine fear rather than performance. The press is going wild, cameras flashing, voices shouting questions. Preston tries to stand, to say something, but Judge Okonkwo's glare pins him to his seat like a butterfly to cork. "As for the custody matter," the judge says, turning to her notes, "I am awarding sole legal and physical custody to Declan Montgomery, effective immediately. Sloane Montgomery's parental rights are terminated pending the outcome of her criminal trial." She looks at me, and for the first time, there's something almost kind in her expression. "Wren Baker is designated permanent emergency guardian, Mr. and Mrs. Preston Baker. Your visitation rights are suspended pending psychological evaluation. All court costs, and Miss Baker's legal fees, are the responsibility of Mrs. Sloane Montgomery." The gavel comes down like a gunshot. Sloane is let out in handcuffs, still crying, her perfect hair coming undone. Preston and Lenore sit frozen, their empire of control crumbling around them in real time. The press swarms them, microphones thrust forward, questions overlapping in a cacophony of scandal. Declan pulls Cooper and Piper close. They've been waiting in the hallway with a court advocate, but someone brings them in now, and Piper runs straight to her father's arms. "I'm crying. I can't help it." But these aren't tears of triumph, they're relief. Pure, overwhelming relief that it's finally over. Elena closes her folder with a quiet snap and gives me the smallest nod. Justice served. 3 years pass like water finding its level. The trees along Lincoln Park turn gold again, the third autumn since that frozen night, and I'm standing in the crowd at Millennium Park watching Mayor Reyes cut the ribbon on the Safe Harbor Garden. The design won the city bid. My design, the one I almost sacrificed to answer Sloane's call that January night. Reporters cluster around the mayor, cameras flashing, but I'm watching the children streaming toward the play structures. The centerpiece is a climbing tower with protective netting, inspired by Cooper's hotel sketches during those first terrible days. Not a memorial, a sanctuary. Marcus claps me on the shoulder. Hell of a thing, Baker. Your name's going on a plaque. I shake my head, throat tight. The work speaks for itself. That evening, I stand in my kitchen chopping vegetables for Sunday dinner, while Cooper sketches elevation drawings at my table. He's 12 now, all gangly limbs and serious concentration. His pencil moves with the same precision I use on blueprints. Aunt Wren, how do you make the perspective lines converge without them looking wobbly? I lean over his shoulder, guiding his ruler placement. Anchor your vanishing point first. Everything else follows. The downstairs door opens and Piper barrels in, paint splattered across her art class smock. She's 9, no longer the hollow-eyed child from the police station. Her laughter fills the kitchen as she shows me her watercolor of the Chicago skyline. It's for your office, she announces. So you remember us when you're being important. Declan follows, carrying groceries for dinner. We live in a 2-flat now, separate apartments but shared meals, shared lives, not romance, something better. Family built on choice rather than blood. Later, Cooper's middle school graduation ceremony fills the auditorium with proud parents and restless siblings. I sit between Declan and Marcus, watching Cooper take the stage as valedictorian. His suit is slightly too big, bought with room to grow, and his hands shake holding his speech. Real family, he says, voice cracking then steadying, are the people who show up when you're scared. His eyes find mine in the crowd. I'm crying before I can stop myself, and Declan squeezes my hand. The standing ovation thunders through the auditorium. Cooper grins, embarrassed and proud, and I think about the shivering boy in the silver blanket, how far we've traveled from that frozen night. My journal entry that night is short. I used to think love meant accepting everything. Now I know love requires boundaries. The next afternoon, Cooper sprawls on my couch, troubled. My friend Jake, his mom keeps borrowing money from him, like his birthday money, his summer job savings. Is that normal? I set down my coffee carefully. What does Jake say about it? He feels guilty saying no. She's his mom. The familiar trap. I recognize it like my own reflection. You can love someone and still protect yourself, Cooper. Those two things aren't opposites. He considers this, then nods slowly. The lesson landing. The cycle breaking. I never responded to Preston and Lenore's letters. They arrived monthly at first, then quarterly, then stopped. Peace found me in distance, not reconciliation. Some relationships don't heal, they just end. The news about Sloane reaches me through Elena's network, remarried to Dr. Brandon Wells, a Connecticut surgeon, a new baby Emma, a fresh start built on hidden truths. Until the baby fell from a changing table. A minor bump, a precautionary hospital visit, a routine background check. The CPS flag appeared like a ghost. Termination of parental rights, severe neglect, Illinois 2022. Elena called to tell me, Wells' parents have emergency custody, he's filing for divorce, the past doesn't stay buried, Wren. I feel nothing, not satisfaction, not pity, just the clean emptiness of a closed chapter. The evening of Cooper's graduation, the three of us stand on my balcony watching the sun set over Chicago. The skyline glows copper and gold, the same colors as the autumn leaves in the park we built together. Cooper suddenly wraps his arms around me, tall enough now that his chin reaches my shoulder. Thanks for not taking the money, he whispers. My chest tightens. Thanks for being brave enough to tell the truth. Declan's arm comes around both of us, solid and sure. We built something better than what broke. The city spreads below us, millions of lights beginning to flicker on as darkness falls. Somewhere in that vast sprawl are other families making impossible choices, setting necessary boundaries, choosing safety over silence. Laughter drifts up from the street below. Piper calls from inside, asking if we want hot chocolate. Cooper pulls away to help her, and I'm left standing with Declan watching our chosen family move through the warm light of home. This apartment, this life, This truth, better than blood, better than lies, the north side wind carries the scent of autumn and possibility. We've built our safe harbor, and it holds.